Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Let's do some local sports roundup here, Brandon, because it's been a little bit. Now kind of, would you say, normal routine of things? We had some holidays, tournaments in the books and such. So.
Yeah, I mean, even like the schedule kind of, there were a few games last night, but really I think tonight it kind of gets back into gear. And, you know, some conferences are going to wait till next week before they jump back into league play. But one of the conferences that will be back in action is the Big Rivers. And, you know, there's actually a couple, both the boys and girls basketball are back in action tonight. And there's a couple big matchups in the Big Rivers, both involving Eau Claire Memorial and Hudson. You've got the boys, who are both two of the three teams tied atop the conference right now. Those two, along with Rice Lake, are all 3-0. Tonight, Memorial plays at Hudson. Boys basketball, Memorial still ranked in the Sports State Coaches Poll. I believe they fell to 10th. They had a couple close losses over the holiday, but they're still right there. Hudson, 5-3. Rice Lake right now unbeaten. Rice Lake takes on Chippewa Falls tonight, so they'll be hosting the Cardinals there. And then on the girls' side, it's the same schedule, it's just flipped. So Eau Claire Memorial, actually, the Eagles' Nest will be hosting that game against Hudson. In a similar boat. Both those teams are 3-0 in conference play. The Old Abe's are 8-1. Hudson's 7-3. I mean, that's a big matchup here for just being not even. I mean, we're at the third way mark of the conference season, but those games will start clicking off pretty quick here, coming up in January. But those are some big matchups here for, right out the chute here in January before we even hit, the first weekend.
I know you, during the holiday break, checked out some holiday classics and tournaments. Anything kind of, if we rewind it from a few days ago, anything kind of stand out to you? Or
Well, I mean, at the start of the week, I actually made the short jaunt to Chautauqua to watch New Auburn boys and girls basketball. New Auburn girls are 9-0, unbeaten right now at top of the East Lakeland Conference. They play Frederick tonight, but that's a team that's going to be I think the favorite in the East Lakeland, but also a team that's looking to win a regional championship and go deep. And watching them play, like they won at least 20 games in each of the last 2 years. Last year they won their first conference title since 1997, and they pretty much returned the team entirely intact. And they're still a really young team. Like, I don't think there's a senior on the team. Like, they're just a lot. They've got some large junior, sophomore, freshman classes that are making an impact. So that's a team that I think the next few years really is still good. They're not going anywhere. Prior to that, in the last week, getting a chance to see the McDonald girls, they played Clear Lake at one of the games of the Denny Laramie Holiday Classic up at McDonald, and that's a team that's new coach. They've been kind of up and down a little bit this year, but they enter the new year on top of the Western Clover Belt. Western Clover Belt play will kick into gear again next week. And there's a big one coming up in the not-too-distant future, McDonald-Fall Creek, where Fall Creek, very good team. And, I mean, that's a rematch of last year's sectional championship game where, they split the regular season meetings. They split the conference championship. I think that's next Thursday maybe.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember offhand. Between those two teams in Regis as well, I mean, those are two very good, experienced teams that all reached sectionals at least last year, and very well could do that again this year. So each time any combination of those three teams play, it's a big deal, and that's definitely the case. When the Macs and the Crickets hook it up, I believe that's in Fall Creek next week.
What's the hockey scene looking like coming up here?
Big Rivers will get back going next week in conference play. I know tonight Chippewa Falls plays Stevens Point. And that's Stevens Point, I believe, is the top-ranked team in the state. I mean, that's a very good team. That's a rematch of last year's sectional championship game.
Right.
And I remember watching that Stevens Point team last year, and they were just saying, like, wow, this team's really young. Like, it's a lot of juniors and sophomores. And so not surprisingly that they're very, very good this year. But
right.
Right now in the Big Rivers, Hudson, we talked about a few weeks ago, they picked up that big win over Memorial. So they're unbeaten at the top of the conference. New Richmond's up there. I mean, New Richmond's, they've been up there each of the last few years. Memorial. River Falls is, 2-2. They picked up a win over Chippewa Falls a couple weeks ago. And then you got Cheyenne and North and Menominee and Rice Lake. But that's just that's a conference that once we get to the postseason for the Division II teams, especially the River Falls, the Menominees, the Rice Lakes, like, they're going to be teams that go into the playoffs, maybe not with the best overall record, but there's a reason that I believe each of those three teams, plus New Richmond when they were D2, I think they're officially D1 this year because of the competitive balance. But there's a reason each of those teams have made the state. Like, I don't think there's a better situation for being a smaller team to be tested for the postseason than being a Division II team in the Big Rivers. Mm-hmm. When you're facing Hudson and Memorial and Chippewa and North, like, how can you not be ready to play in the postseason? But
right.
That's kind of the case there. But otherwise, you in the middle border, if you look at Ram, Regis, Altoona, McDonald, that's a team that's really come out of the gate strong here, and they've had some good years. In recent memory, it was not that long ago they were playing in the sectional championship game, but they against Menominee. That was when Menominee went to state. I believe it was 2 years ago. But they're currently, it's still early in the middle border season, but them and Amory are kind of at the top of the conference right now. But Ram is 9-1, and that's a team that again is going to be another one that in that Division II area is going to be probably a team to really keep an eye on around here.
Wrestling. Did we have any holiday stuff over the weekend? Was it a little bit of a
last
break?
Weekend there was some. I mean, a couple of the big tournaments. You had the Oshkosh Lourdes on the Water tournament down in Oshkosh. That's where Chippewa Falls goes every year. They had a pretty good accounting for themselves there. You had the Northern Badger Wrestling Classic in River Falls. There's a lot of teams from around here that go over there. Cadott, Bloomer, Colfax. Just so many of them. And I'd say the other big tournament is the Bi-State Classic, which is down in La Crosse, which as it's called the Bi-State, obviously from both Wisconsin and Minnesota. So those are kind of some of the big 2-day tournaments, and that's really the holidays is kind of that time where you can in the regular season obviously host a 2-day tournament.
Right.
So and this is kind of the first kind of mark I would say for. Kind of starting to look around for wrestling a little bit. Now we're gonna have some tourneys coming up here in the month of January. I know Cadott's is next weekend. That's a big deal, especially as girls wrestling has got off the ground. That's quickly become one that a lot of teams go to on the girls' side as well. Chippewa Falls invites a little bit later this month. There's some big ones coming up, and the thing about the wrestling postseason is once you get to February, it's kind of here. And the Big Rivers, just in dual competition, you got some, the cast of characters. The Hudson's, the Memorials up top, Eau Claire North off to a solid start. But also, Chippewa Falls is up there, too. So, and those teams are going to all be wrestling against each other at some duels coming up here. So, really, the month of January is going to kind of crown a Big Rivers dual champion because there's no conference tournament for the Big Rivers for wrestling like you might have for the Clover Belt or for other conferences. So, that's kind of where a lot of the work that's done there is the Big Rivers.
I know if anybody wants to check out Brandon's piece from a couple of days ago, it's in your Chippewa.com, your top 9 stories. Was it pretty hard to narrow it down to just 9?
Kind of. And the thing, too, was there were so many things I just tried to, there's some things that are kind of similar, so you kind of lump them together, but because you just kind of want to make sure you touch on a bunch of different things.
Right.
Because you don't want it to just simply be like, hey, this team was good this year. It's like, okay, well, why? And then some other stuff that goes with it. So
right. So check it out, Chippewa.com. Still up there and available too. So your swimming and is still you're gonna be picking gymnastics. Those will get back going. I mean, there were some events, but for the most part, I know some of those teams kind of maybe took it a little bit easy over the break. I think the Eau Claire Lions held their their annual diving invite that they had, or there was I think a part of it obviously, but. And they'll be back in action. They had the Santa Claus invite right prior to Christmas, but those events kind of a bit like wrestling, where now you're going to really start to see some of those conference duels kick into gear. So those will get going. Gymnastics is kind of similar. Now you'll start seeing maybe more in the way of triangulars in the Big Rivers with Chippewa Falls, McDonald, the defending conference champions. They'll have they host one coming up here. I forget if it's next Monday or maybe the Monday after, but you're starting to get into that competition as well because really, I mean, swimming, especially once February gets here, it's the postseason. Yeah. Yep.
And this is the time, and I've actually got a piece that, is going to be on the website today, kind of on swimming, just on, and I use Chippewa Falls McDonald boys swimming as the example for this, but just kind of some of the challenges that come with, when you're a smaller team, just like some of the challenges and some of the rewards that come with it because, you've got, I think Chippewa Falls McDonald has 14 kids. And when you go in a duel, you can only swim 4 events. So you're trying to find a way, how does that work when you don't have a lot of kids, but you have a lot of events you're trying to account for? So I just talked to some of the coach, Matthew Blake, and then also some of the swimmers about just, how do you how do you balance that? Because you have swimmers at different ability levels, and it ended up being a really interesting piece to write. But swimmers this time of year, they're going to start they call tapering, where basically you put in a bunch of work, you kind of build yourself up, and then you can kind of bring yourself back down by the postseason.
Interesting.
So and basically you feel really good. Like think about if you go out and you run.
I would just say, is it load management almost?
Kind of, where you build yourself up. And I think usually the middle to end-ish of January is when they're putting in their most miles. So then once the postseason comes, you're really in shape, and you can put in a little bit less, but you still feel really good.
Right.
If you're building yourself up to run a marathon, and you run a half marathon, you're probably going to feel pretty good in that half marathon because you've been training for a full marathon.
Right. Interesting. Looking forward to checking that out for sure. Good stuff there, B. Quickly, we got a couple of Blue Gold and Stout notes because we got a couple big games coming up here. The men's basketball team, which is off to a fantastic start. Big test for them coming up tomorrow night. They're going to be visiting ranked UW Lacrosse as they begin WIAC tournament play too. So men's team, I don't know if anybody saw it, but they defeated Carleton College back on the 30th thanks to almost a buzzer beater, but it was almost a half-court shot with 1 second left there, too. So if you have not checked out this men's basketball team with new head coach Zach Malvik over there, it's a really fun team, and they're riding an 8-game winning streak right now. 8-game winning streak, 8-3 so far on the season. The women's team also, they're going to be at home tomorrow night taking on lacrosse. Women's gymnastics getting going there, too, for the Blue Golds. Gustavus Adolphus. Stout, meanwhile, the women's team taking on number 8 ranked Oshkosh. That's going to be at Oshkosh. The men's team going to be at home taking on Oshkosh for basketball.
The Kohl Center.
So,
this Oshkosh alum is a little familiar with that venue.
But WIAC action now kicking up
in. Once we get to the new year, they're going as well, and it's going to be highly contested as it always is.
I think, especially on that men's side, I'm really anxious to see this men's team get into some WIAC action because I know I was looking actually at the D3 polls the other day because there's a few WIAC teams in there, and Eau Claire was on the list of receiving votes.
Okay.
So there was only a couple, but they're starting to make some noise there.
They're getting the attention.
Yep, and I think if they can go into lacrosse and pick up a W, that'll make even more attention.
Right, that's definitely a way to kind of grab some more attention.
Exactly. So